Yeah, bro.
So yeah.
So here's I probably should have led with this at the beginning of the podcast, but here we go. This is something that's been a big topic of discussion this week, right? And it's the talk of um FPS, right? The 30 versus 60 FPS conversation. Reaper, you're one of the best people I could talk to when it comes to shit like this cuz again, we saw how you went with this shit. I know you have expertise
And
when it
with
comes
one
to
of
stuff
the
like that.
leading voices in the graphics industry,
Right.
we have Reaper for you.
Exactly. So, um should it make or break? So this is the question of the day, guys, or question of the week, however you want to put it. Should graphics make or break um fan expectation? Should it be a make or break if a fan gets the game or not?
Look, can I expand on that,
Reaper.
Cash? Question I have for you, Reaper, is do graphics, either 60 or 30 or whatever, do they make that big of a difference on gameplay? Does it really impact gameplay? Is it a make or
Competitively,
break gameplay wise? For
Depends
the
on the game. That
Okay.
is very dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here's where you feel the difference. Racing games,
oof,
you'll
yes.
feel the difference. Things will feel smoother. The car seems to move faster the higher the frame rate.
Mm.
Um, Competitive shooters, you feel the difference. The higher the frame rate, the more smooth the gameplay feels, the more you feel like you can do the next thing. Um, Another thing, fighters.
Yeah.
A lot of fighting folks here. If I were to hand you Street Fighter 6, since we all play Street Fighter, if I were to hand you Street Fighter 6 right now, but lock the frame rate to 30, I guarantee
Different
you
game.
none
Different
of
game.
you would be able to pull off the combos you've so well
Different game.
practiced.
Mm.
You're
Okay,
Everything
spot
would
on.
so
feel off.
how does that make a difference? Because if I'm still inputting the thing, it still results on screen,
But
but it's not going to result in gameplay delay.
when it happens and how you perceive it happening,
Mm-hmm.
think about it, especially in fighters, you're actually frame counting. If I
Yes.
throw half those frames
Mm-hmm.
away,
Yes. He's
that
not wrong.
changes what you do.
He's not
Yeah,
wrong.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
that's
Um,
facts.
so but now here's where it doesn't matter. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, 30
Right.
frames a second, 60 frames a second,
Mm-hmm.
you don't care. Um
So why are people
Uncle
so up in arms about like this whole
Wait,
frame rate
so
conversation?
question. So in terms of uh solo player experiences,
mhm.
third frame rates don't matter.
They don't
But
matter though.
when a
They matter
competitive
to a point, but not as much.
in
Once
a
it
Here's another
once
competitive
point.
state though, it's essential.
Here's another point.
yeah.
A lot of your favorite movies are in 24 frames per second.
Every
You
movie,
do not,
most movies.
most movies,
That's the
you do
standard.
not need a high frame rate to enjoy an experience.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're playing a guy on the other side of the screen who has a gun and he's aiming at you and he has 144 frames a second and you have 48, he's seeing more information about what you're doing than you're seeing about what he's doing. It's plain and simple.
But well, also in terms of frame rates, like we all have different, PC builds and stuff. So if you lock it into a certain frame rate, does that affect the other person as well, or
No,
am I
because
in an
you're
island? Am I only one getting the benefit of that 60 frames, or is someone else that's operating on lower frames? Am I
Okay.
still impacted by them? That those are questions
No,
that
no, no.
I
Okay.
would
Okay.
want to know.
So you're not impacted by the other person's rendering ability. What you're describing is network lag. The difference in how quickly you two can communicate not just to each other, but the server that makes a determination on who won the exchange in a firefight. That's a
Mm.
different scenario.
So
The
frames don't bear on that.
no.
Mm.
frames now is like Heartless's example. If we're both, let's say our internet connections are equal, the servers running optimally, the difference now is who's getting more visual data than the
That's
next.
what I was about to say. It's how your eye perceives information.
Yeah.
How
So
much information your eye gets to perceive.
You get to perceive, yeah.
yeah. So if you get more visual information and assuming both persons' reaction times are equal, let's say you're both equally skilled, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
take skill out of the equation. Because a very skilled person on a shitty rendering setup can take out a novice just because they know what to do with what little information they have much better than the other person getting more data. So skill being equal, yes, the person with more visual input will win every time.
Okay. So going back to what I was saying, why are
Mhm.
so many people up in arms about this whole, oh well, if a game's not 60 FPS, I'm not playing it. Like why where did that conversation come from?
Marketing.
Technology, because
No,
of the
Mm.
marketing.
technology. Well, I think they play the same thing. I think it's because we market our new age consoles to be so advanced that when people spend this money on a console, they're
Mhm.
like, I want my fucking games.
Well,
I'm sorry for
in
swearing.
the
I
terms of
want my
like
games.
Dragon's
Yep.
Dogma 2, which is a solo player experience,
Mhm.
why do you care about frame rates? That really doesn't make a big difference at
Again,
all.
marketing.
You just
Like
reload the
like
game if you
like Heart
lose, you know?
like Heartless said.
Mhm.
I paid for on the box it said 4K 60 frames a second. Why are you giving me a game that's running 30?
Yeah,
Right.
we're
Well,
supposed to be in the future.
my car can go 100 plus miles an hour, but the streets say I can only go 60 or 75. You know, so like there has to be a middle ground there that is ideal for everyone.
You know
Does
what
that make
game was
sense?
30 FPS and it was a freaking beautiful game and it still looks amazing to this day? Batman Arkham Arkham Knight. Arkham Knight was
It's
one
pretty
of the
good. Yeah,
best
it looks as good as
best
Spider-Man 2 did.
to this day. And that was a
To this
30 FPS
day.
game to this day.
Just day.
And that's a 30
Damn,
FPS game.
When do you get a soundbite of that? Is that when
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
says that?
Somebody
yeah,
clip that. Somebody clip that, please.
yeah.
yeah.
No,
Damn
we need
shame.
the actual Deontay Wilder footage. Like,
To
Yeah.
this day. Yeah,
Damn
bro.
shame y'all had to experience that at 30 frames a second. Couldn't be me. Um
Wow.
no.
I got something to say though. I got something to say. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Reaper, how do you feel about this? Anything above 150, 144, at that point, the difference is probably indistinguishable for the human. And there is people out there who search for 300 frames a second on your PC, and it's almost just like, why?
I heard it's
So
120. I heard it's 120. The
so
human eye.
here's the thing. Once you pass a certain frame rate,
Mm,
it's a diminishing returns. The amount of people who can discern the difference, the higher the frame rate,
mm,
becomes a smaller and smaller subset of people.
Yeah.
You do have those supreme esports athletes as they were who can very much discern that difference.
Yeah.
right.
And then
Yeah.
you have the average person, you show them 120 or 240, they couldn't tell you.
So, if a game runs at 60 frames, does that lessen the amount of content you can put in a game? Does that impact that at all?
No.
Because I
Okay.
imagine a CPU would take more power to run at higher frames, right?
So now
So,
you're talking about the hardware constraints of the platform.
Mm,
so if I have a game that's locked in at 30 frames, ideally, at least in my mind, I don't know if I'm wrong on this, but I would think you'd be able to put more content into a game because you know what the frame rate will be throughout.
So
Um,
it's not content in the game, it's the amount you can produce on the screen at any one time.
mm,
That's the
so an
difference.
open world game that would make a lot of sense because you want to render more in the game, right?
Yes.
Like a Dragon's Dogma or like a Baldur's Gate or whatever. You want
Yeah.
more content on the screen at any given time. So that makes sense. And that would probably would apply to shooters too, especially the bigger maps like Overwatch or whatever, right?
The thing
So
with shooters is more content means more distractions on the screen to make the game almost feel um I don't want to say unplayable, but like distracting. Like I know a lot of pros will take their game and put it on the lowest graphical settings because
yeah.
and they don't want all these the extra things on the screen. They
that's
don't
a
want
complaint I hear a lot about Street Fighter 6
Even
is people say,
blur,
"Oh, I have
even
to watch the
motion blur.
bars, I have to watch all these bars and watch the frames and watch
Mm,
the drive rush and
that's a
it's so
part of the
much
challenge.
content you have to, take
That's the
in."
challenge. That's why I
Yeah,
love
and
it.
that's the challenge.
That's why I
So
love it.
when does it come to be a point where it's not fun anymore, having so much content at 60 frames or whatever?
So here's here's where the marketing fluff is screwed. The current console industry, right?
mm,
Their marketing is ahead of where their technology is in the consoles. Console fans, you're not gonna like me right about now, but keep in mind, all modern consoles are running essentially hardware that has an equivalent on an off-the-shelf part. Every single Xbox, PlayStation right now, the current gen, I'm not going to include the old gen, and
mm,
I'm not going to include the Series S. The two top ones are essentially, at best, medium, 30, maybe if you're lucky, if it's a small scope game, 60 frames a second, 4K machines. None of them are running high fidelity, ultra fidelity, whatever. So to make up for that, what a lot of these devs are doing for why the games look kind of good, they're taking advantage of the fact that you tend to sit further away from
Mm.
your screen. In doing so, they get to cheat. They'll run the game instead of at 4K, which is 2160p. So we have a number now, and they'll render it at 1080p
Mm-hmm.
and take the final image, and this is very quick, upscale it, just put in fake dots, just double and quadruple the dots to fill in the screen to be 4K.
Oh,
Mathematically, that's less intensive than rendering the game at
Bro,
4K.
I love this guy. We need him on the show
bro,
every
I'm
week.
telling you, bro. I'm telling you, bro.
I literally, yeah, dude, make it every like month we have this dude on because I feel
Bro,
like I'm
anytime I
taking
can
notes
learn
right
from somebody
now.
consistently
Yeah,
is really a good time. This is the Reaper
Yeah.
show tonight.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of these 4K games are doing. Your TV will say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm in 4K mode," but the game's not really running at 4K.
Yeah, we're gonna rename the
Just AI
podcast.
upscaled.
Whenever
Okay,
he's on, we're
so
calling it Reaper Actual.
is the debate valid of having the 30 FPS versus 60 FPS? Is that really is if someone who's playing on 30 FPS can they still be on the same level as someone that's on
I'm
60
not
FPS?
I'm not
I
playing
don't
a
know.
single shooter at 30 FPS. I'm not.
I don't play
Um,
shooters. So
if
what other
can
games
can
does it
they
make
be
it?
on the same level? The skill level of that only getting 30 frames of visual fidelity has to
Mm-hmm.
be that much higher than the person with 60 because they have
Mm,
less to work with.
okay.
Yes. The game sense has
Okay.
to be through the roof. They have to know where the enemies are going to be coming
So the
from.
people
They're
that are
relying on
complaining,
audio much more.
the
Mm,
games that have been coming out at 30 FPS lately have been games, like Overwatch 2 and games like Dragon's Dogma and games like just a bunch of different, RPG kind of titles. So, Final
Did you say
Fantasy
Overwatch
7,
2?
games like those where in the grand scheme of things, it's not something to really care about unless you're a competitive gamer. At least that's where that's where I seem to be lying in this
You're, you're,
debate.
you're, you're
mm.
probably right in that. But did you say Overwatch 2?
Yeah, it's at 30 frames, I think. According
On
to this
maybe on
link
the
I
Nintendo
found, it
Switch.
says
On the
that it's
Nintendo Switch.
30.
It's on
On,
Nintendo.
that's on Nintendo
I
Switch.
played at 150 frames, 144 frames. I played at.
I don't know.
Mm,
Maybe on console there's a lock, but there's no lock on PC that I know
PC.
about.
Mm,
Yeah. Um,
Oh wow!
It
I'm
says
an
one
idiot.
person may be running the game on 120 FPS with 4K, while the other could be struggling with 30 FPS at 900p.
so we got Pinksy in the
So,
chat said it's 60 frames on console.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
Is that game cross-plat? I'm not even sure anymore. Is
It
Overwatch
is.
cross?
Not
It
for
is.
ranked.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is.
oh,
Not for ranked though.
Overwatch
Not
is
for
not.
rank? Yeah, because
Oh,
if
really?
it's
I didn't know that.
yeah, if it's not cross-plat for ranked, that makes sense because everyone in ranked on console would feel like they're getting shit on.
So it feels like 60 FPS makes a big difference on, PvP experience,
Yes.
but in any
Absolutely.
other situation, 30 FPS is more than
I was
adequate.
playing Power World at 30 FPS with
Yeah.
not a problem, enjoying the game.
Yeah,
Mm.
you wouldn't care for that.
Yeah, because it's
that-
not a high fidelity game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it's like,
from devs, like, what do we expect out of them? Is it 60 FPS for multiplayer games or bust, or are we willing to accept the 30 FPS?
Well, those of us who know the difference are, but again, if you're caught up in the marketing hype, this is the same people who are caught up very strongly in the platform wars and don't pay attention to the logic of it. They just, it's my platform, they're going to do better. Those people are so caught up into the marketing hype of they bought this box that said 4K, 60 frames a second, this is the future. They want that. They need that because it validates their entire purpose of being on that platform.
mm.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've
And
heard.
this heralds
Mhm.
and this heralds back from when these consoles used to be very different. If you go back to 360 PS3 era, those were very custom platforms. These were not off-the-shelf parts. They invested time and money in those. You go back further, PlayStation 1 versus Sega Saturn versus N64. None of them were alike on any level. So
So
this person developing this custom thing that they sold to you you were bought in on that whole experience, and
So
people have
question,
been
question
trained
for
for
you,
that, and
Reaper.
it's gone now on the back end.
Question
Yeah,
for you, Reaper. So is 60 FPS as a standard in gaming, is that realistic in today's
Yes.
environment?
Yes.
it is if you stop pushing the fact that these are 4K machines because they're
Mm,
not really 4K.
okay.
But
Okay.
it does set up the benefit to the platforms, right? They're telling you this is 4K now, right?
So you're
The next
expecting,
generation that can render internally at a higher resolution is going to look so much better than these,
right? And
even though
it's
it's
just,
still 4K.
yeah,
So the
because now
next
it's,
console generations
yeah,
that comes out in maybe
8K is the
3
next
4
big
years,
thing right now.
whatever time frame, our 60 FPS is going to be like the minimum we're willing to expect. I would think for the next gen for sure, right? Because supposedly it is supposed to be more powerful, right? So because we've been promising 4K for quite a while, especially since PS4 Pro comes out in Christmas
Mhm.
time, or PS5 Pro comes out Christmas time. Um, I don't know. That might be an incentive for me to buy one if I could get that.
So they're they're going to tell you they do whatever, but they're not there yet. Internally, they're all using equivalents of, if you're looking for a PC part equivalent, they're closer to the Radeon 6000 series, which is already obsolete.
Damn.
Wow.
But so what's happening? The operating system of these consoles is so bare bones that all they have to focus on is like running so little as like at one time
No,
that
no.
that then why is it that this console, although you're saying it's comparable to an obsolete PC, 100% plays better than an obsolete PC?
I do
It
know that
it
Tekken
appears
frames
to
makes
do that
all the
because
makes all the difference.
it
It
appears to
really
do that.
does.
If you took that old PC, right,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and you just, instead of running things at native, essentially this is what this is doing, right? Because this is closer to a PS4 than it is to a PS5 as far as power, right?
Hmm.
Upscaling. You just have upscaling on that PC on by default,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it's a different experience. But
I
it's not
see.
the default on PC. People
Mm.
expect, I paid to push this much bits, I should see this much bits on my screen.
But
I get you. That's fair.
but
You buy a product, you expect the performance from your product. It makes
that's not the
total
part.
sense.
That's not the part that gets me though. It's the people that just outright just disqualify as a game. Oh, I won't play this game because it's 30, not 60, and them don't even fucking know exactly
So
what is
I agree
30
with
or
you, Bash.
60
They're
FPS.
not valid
Yeah,
to
yeah. You
dismiss
don't
someone's work just because it's a lower frame rate. You
exactly
should at
because
least
you don't know
try
what
it.
the hell you don't know what you're looking for. I know that for a fact. A lot of these people don't know because sometimes I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking at. Like I'm not counting frames. I'm not doing that. I'm not looking at those things. So shout outs to whoever. Oh, whole lot of Jake. Thank you for that rate. Shout outs. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. We're
It's
live on the
very similar
podcast.
to fighting games where at the casual level, frame data doesn't matter to you. It really doesn't. It just
Yeah.
matters that you're able to throw a fireball and all that stuff. But at the higher levels, yeah, it really does matter. And it does make a difference and it can win or lose your matches. So, you know, it's a matter of the perspective and how dedicated you are to the games, I guess. So
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. Even though it depends, like I look at whether a game is good first. I look at like, is this game fun? That's my only concern. It's a game. I need to know that this game is gonna be fun. I don't think about the graphics that extensively. Like if the graphics is passable for me, and this might be a hot take. I don't know, but if the graphics look passable for me, I'm okay with it.
and ultimately, is that what we're all here to do in the first place? Games are supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
right?
So if a game
That
looks
Yeah.
is the
fun,
whole
that's the first. That's the
that's the
first
whole
thing.
reason they exist, right?
Hmm.
They're not meant to be
So
so hardcore like that.
but that's our point of view. I recently was in a conversation with someone who, about my age, maybe a 1 or 2 years difference, right? So had a similar experience watching games evolve growing up, right?
Hmm.
And they legit told me, I can't do retro. We're in the modern age. Why am I looking at pixels?
That's lame.
Huh.
That's
The
sad.
hell?
But no, but keep in mind that that's not a unique experience.
Hmm.
It's fair. It's fair it's fair for the generation, whatever the generational gap or whatever, but it's also sad that they're willing to deprive themselves of a great experience, because
But
they can't open their mind.
to them, they had that experience back then. They don't
Mm,
want to even think about
yeah,
touching now.
it's the
And that means
future.
the market for the retro modern people who do games in those styles, right?
Mhm.
They wouldn't touch that. That whole market to them, the whole boomer shooter, retro modern, they wouldn't touch that.
It's
And it
become
also feels like
niche.
the industry is benefiting from sort of this perspective because we get remasters all the time, like Final Fantasy VII
But that's
recently.
exactly why we get
People,
remasters all the time.
yeah, it's exactly why, because people don't want to go back and play the old game because it looks like trash compared to what's coming out now. So yeah,
Exactly.
the industry is benefiting from that
Bro,
mindset.
how many remakes have we seen of one game? Like which game? I think Last of Us. Last of Us had like 4 remakes
Yeah.
in the space of what, like 3 4 years?
Resident Evil has made they haven't made a new game in a while. They just keep
Bro,
remaking old
bro,
ones.
it's gotten
Pokemon has
so
been doing
bad.
this for 30 years.
But it's
You
gotten
know?
so yeah, bro, it's gotten so bad though that Last of Us 2 had a remaster 3 years after this game came out, bro. That's how bad it is. 3 years after the original release. And if you look at them side by side, you cannot tell the difference. I've seen too many videos. Too many.
Well, you know why that remaster existed, right?
Just
What?
the records. The
Mm-mm,
records. No?
mm-mm.
What?
The PC version.
Really?
They prepped the PC version. They did all the dev time. All right, turn the settings
Oh,
back
okay.
down to medium and
And
release it on our new console as
oh,
well.
okay. Makes sense.
They already devved it, so they just put
But
it out on
but
the
was
console and on Steam.
and here's why
Yeah,
they're
okay,
gonna
got
keep doing it. They broke records, bro. The game sold
Plus,
gangbusters. The
they want
remake,
to capitalize on the popularity of that show too. Like
Yeah.
that show is
but
good,
that's not
and
it. But
they want to capitalize on that too.
but that's not what
You
I'm
know?
saying though. They sold out. They made gangbusters off of that
Yeah.
re-release.
So guys,
That
So
was
that's why
one of
they're
the
gonna
top
keep doing
games
it.
on Steam when it released. Like
Yeah,
it took over the market for a moment.
yeah, they're gonna keep doing it. They're gonna keep doing remasters because the fan base is gonna eat it up.
Well, and then there's the extreme where I like the Tombs Raider remaster they did recently, but I
Hmm.
also don't like it at the same time. It did a lot of quality of life improvements and improved the graphics, but outside of that, it didn't do anything. So, I hope that I would prefer if we get remakes of games or remasters of games that is a little
like
bit
Final
more
Fantasy.
evolved than just that. Like Final Fantasy, something more evolved, like Resident Evil, more evolved.
Let's
You
clear
know?
the air about something though, guys. So if you notice, N2 Live said in chat, they keep saying graphics and FPS, and what he means is FPS. So FPS obviously is the number of frames that you can get per second,
Mm.
and graphics is something else. Graphics is like the texture of
The
the
visual
assets,
fidelity.
the
Visual
physical
fidelity, yeah, yeah.
fidelity. But to me, when I think of graphical quality, I think of both things in one. That's why he said earlier, FPS and graphics are not the same thing, and I said turkey and mustard is not the same thing, but they both make a sandwich. Because when I think of graphical fidelity, I think of both the FPS
Mm-hmm.
and the graphics.
It
But
feels like,
with all that
correct
being
me if I'm
said,
wrong,
you do
Reaper, but it
not
feels like they
need
go together.
you
You know,
do
but
not
Um,
need good graphics to make a good game,
No,
and
you
that's been
don't.
proven
yeah,
over and
You
over
don't.
again.
You don't. You
you
don't.
know, yeah. No, are they technically the same thing? No. If you're saying he just explained his definition, and in his sentence structure,
Mm-hmm.
context is important. You can allude to the fact that he was referring to them as a complete package, so it's
Yeah,
fine. But
Mm-hmm.
if I was to write a tech paper and describe them as the same thing,
failed
yeah,
failure
Yeah.
that would
failure.
get burned.
Yeah.
So, but it's understandable. Yes, people just say, like, there's people now who I talk to. Oh, I'm having so much lag. Lag is very specific term,
Mhm.
Very
and I'm from
internet
It's
an
online. It's an
internet area.
online term
lag,
Yeah.
right?
So when
So
they're saying they're having lag,
in a
they're
single player
technically,
game.
yeah, they're dropping frames per second. Their frame
Hmm.
rate drop,
Right.
and they say, "Oh, I'm lagging." No, there's no lag. But to them, they equate that because their earliest experiences go back to the 360 and PS3 era when online. Those were that's the only lag that experience, that juddery experience, was coincided with lag.
Mhm.
Listen, there's no lag. You just broke. You get a better
Yeah.
PC.
So it's
That
something.
PC be gasping for air. Like, help it
Yeah.
out, you know?
It's one of those things where people are using the wrong terms, but you have to look at what they're trying to convey.
Right. Well, yeah.
So what do we conclude from this debate? As I mean,
Does
is
graphics?
FPS?
Yeah.
Do we
Not.
want to stay in 30 FPS or do we want to keep pushing for 60?
Should we rule
Well,
out
we
a
should
game?
wanna
No.
get better and
No.
better.
The question was, should we rule out a game solely on the FPS? Because that was
I
the
would
big
say
conversation this
no.
week. Oh, definitely.
100% no for me.
I will
I would
never
give it
take
a
a game
chance.
competitively
Mhm.
if I cannot get 144 frames. I'm not even 60, 144 frames.
You know what?
Well, you define competitively for me, Heartless. Are you talking about putting money on the line or just playing on a
No,
ranked
I'm
level?
talking about trying to get to like a top 500 or a master rank in Overwatch or something like that. And I'll tell you this why. When I played Overwatch on my previous PC that was capping out at 60 frames a second, I could not get past gold.
Mhm.
And then in the 2 months that I played on my newer PC, I was one game away from masters.
For
One game
me,
away.
if I'm putting money, if there's money on the line on a game, I want the best quality I can get. But if I'm just here to enjoy a game, I don't really care that much. That's just me.
So you
Yeah.
know what? This is what I just kind of like just had an aha moment just now. All this conversation about FPSs in the 30 versus 60 conversation. This is more geared towards a console conversation than it would be a PC because most
Yeah, that's
PCs can
fact.
scale up to like
Or beyond this. Or
yeah,
beyond this.
yeah.
Well, developers lock games at the 30 FPS now. Is that because we're in a state of crossplay? If we
No,
eliminate that crossplay, or
the lock that, at least in Castro's example,
Mm-hmm.
was because they wanted that's the frame rate they could maintain steadily.
Mm-hmm.
They probably experienced in testing at 60. So if you're playing a game that's 60 frames per second, but you can't maintain it on whatever hardware, it's going to feel jarring, that sudden dip to 40 or that sudden dip to 25 or whatever that is. When you're playing at one and there's a sudden change, it pulls you out of the experience and it gets annoying because now just imagine you're in a boss battle. You're getting used to the movement and timing of moving around this boss at 60. Right as the boss swings at you, you drop to 40 frames a second. Your timing is off.
Mm.
You lose, you're
gotcha.
angry. And
That
it's
does
nothing
feel
because of
like
your
lag, by the
skill
way.
level.
it's nothing.
And I
That's
see,
not skills.
and I
That's
see why
tech that's
people
holding
say
you
that
back.
it's lag
I got
because
you.
that moment does feel like lag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. But it's not because of a network issue, it's because your machine for a moment could not produce what it needed to on
Yeah.
the screen.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's the goal? Steady
The goal is
experience?
a steady experience. For single player
Okay.
games in the current console field, you would prefer a steady single player
So
experience. And
eliminate that console element, and
Mhm.
then that eliminate that? If we all switch to PC, does that
We all
eliminate that?
switched to PC.
So you're saying if
Mm.
if the entire landscape was PC right now,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you would still have people on low end hardware because now this becomes the starting point.
Yeah.
And this is a 30 to 60 FPS target.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So
So
it's
that
gonna always be a low end.
There's
yeah,
just too many variables here to really create a steady experience.
One thing for
yeah.
sure though is 30 frames a second steady. 30 frames a second is a much better experience than 80 frames a second for 4 seconds, then a dip down to 55 and then back up to 80.
Mm.
Much
Yeah,
it is a much better experience.
yeah. You want consistency.
Consistency.
And again, games are meant to be fun, and if they're not fun, then you're doing something wrong.
I
We
mean,
talked a lot about graphics today.
a lot
Yeah.
about graphics.
Or FPS as I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's not misconstrue things. Heartless.
Sorry.
No,
What was
it,
that?
it it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a lot of this confusion is because of marketing, people's expectations because of the marketing. And gone are the days when I remember when magazines used to explain the tech in the consoles to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
This was a
Yeah.
big selling point. Oh, it's gonna have this, it can do this, it can do that, and they gave you the logic behind it. And now the magazines are gone, and it's just now
Now
a lot
you,
of marketing fluff.
yeah. Now
Right.
you get that same thing in a 15-second TikTok, which is
It's
not
got to
enough
be
information.
frustrating when you buy a new age game and it looks like a game on 360. It's just that in itself just has to be frustrating.
Mm.
Yeah.
It depends on the game for me, because I do play a lot of lower quality graphical and FP. I know it's not graphics, but I play a lot of lower games, like
All right.
lower quality games like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I enjoy the hell out of them. I still, so,
But
but
that's the
that's
expectation. Look how you describe the games.
Yeah, what about Ghost of Tsushima though? Imagine if everyone thought Ghost of Tsushima was a beautiful looking game in the trailer, and then they get the game and it looks like a 360 game. Like,
That would take away some of the allure.
that would
Yeah.
take. Imagine Elden Ring. You buy Elden Ring because you see the trailer, they show you the opening scene, and it looks beautiful as hell, and then you get it, and it looks like a 360 game.
A few games have done that in the past though, where they basically had like a scripted gameplay. It's like a scripted
yeah. Several
gameplay just
games
to
have done
demonstrate,
that to me on the
just to
Switch.
demonstrate. And when
Like
the
I,
game comes out, boy, I think Killzone was one of the games that did that. I don't know if you guys remember Killzone, but Killzone did that
Mhm.
one E3, bro. And when the game came out, bro, people had
They
things
coded
to
specific
say.
gameplay footage to make it
Yes.
look better than it actually played.
Yes, it's
Mhm.
Oh, you
it
didn't know? You
happens.
didn't know
They
about?
they
Wait,
do
wait.
that a
You never
lot,
knew about? You never knew about the E3 smoke and mirrors?
No,
bro,
Yo, one
bro.
of the biggest jokes
no.
from that era
Mhm.
was the amount of times people would like peek behind like wherever the table was. They'd always have like some cloth with their branding
Mhm.
or a curtain with their branding on the stage. And like after their presentation and people can roam around and stuff, people would look behind and there'd be a $4,000 gaming rig
Not even
that
a
just
console.
produced the gaming
Yeah.
that produced the in-game footage that you saw the person
in
playing on
in-game
stage.
footage. They always say it. Don't trust in-game footage. Never trust that in-game footage shit.
They're played on PCs, huh?
That's
Pretty
what they
much.
used to do. That used to
Yeah.
be the racket all the time in the PS2, 360, PS3, PS4. Those the E3 heyday when it was popping off and everyone's there.
Mm-hmm.
Pure smoke and mirrors behind the scene.
Yeah, because they were trying to sell
Wow.
their games.
be ready, be on the lookout for that cash at the Summer Games Fest, because essentially that's what it is.
I remember G4
So
TV.
be on the lookout for that there too.
G4 TV is a
watching,
whole other.
watching E3 on it.
G4
It was
TV
hype
was
back
game.
then. It was
G4
so hype.
TV was nerd TV, and I miss it so much. They tried to bring it back, but it wasn't. It didn't hold because they came back at one of the worst times ever. They came back during the era of YouTube. YouTube
Yeah,
already
I-
kind of took over
It feels
that.
like something like
It
that could
filled that
come back
hole.
today,
No, it
but
didn't. They
I don't
can't.
know.
They can't. They
Maybe
tried
not.
it. They tried like a year ago, like 2 years ago, and it died.
Well, we get our content now through stuff like this,
You,
podcasts and
yeah, YouTube is
and
like
stuff.
like
So it
most of
wouldn't
these things
survive
are like
now.
real time. Like game news breaks like at the speed of light nowadays, bro. So it's like it's not like a once a week program is just not gonna cut it.
So
They have to
Cash, I
be.
need you to keep a promise. I need you to keep a promise.
What's that?
Oh, God.
No more Suicide Squad. At least for 4 podcasts. 2 podcasts. At
Germ,
least.
Germ. I
No
love
more
you. I
Suicide
love you, Germ, but I can't make this promise. I
I,
can't.
I think
What if
I
the
think
game gets
Marcus is gonna
good?
start a riot.
Yeah. What if the game gets
I'm quitting
good?
the podcast if that happens.
Really, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's any more mention of the Suicide Squads, I'm
All right.
maybe not even finish that sentence.
We're gonna have a code word for that game so that we don't say. You can say it, code
Mhm.
word for Suicide Squad.
What if the
Chat.
game gets good? Am I
You
not?
shouldn't
Am
even
I?
be saying that word.
No,
This
we're
is-
not.
This is like
We.
bad for the algorithm.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
But hey, no, I think because I've seen a lot of people post it like full name on titles on their videos, and their videos do well. I think it's because it's kind of accepted in a sense because those two words are together. The Suicide Squad. Those are together, so it kind of like
I
Shout out
think
to
the
the
quality.
Unalive
I think
Yourself
the
squad.
quality. No, Cash. The quality of the
unalive yourself.
game is what kills the algorithm.